Yes, sir. Without further ado, welcome to another episode of Interviews with the Foreign Magazine, where we dive deeper than the surface. Here, we go beyond the headlines and social media posts to explore the stories, insights, and journeys of our guests. Each sit down is a chance to uncover their perspectives, experiences, and what drives them. And today, we bring you another episode. Here on the platform today, we have none other than a brother that is for the people, well known to see this brother. I'm talking about mad love on a specific area in Detroit, man, where you can find this brother, man. For years, this brother been in this area, 7 Mile in Greenfield, right by that CVS, man. Everybody done seen the brother right there. But not only just that, and my experiences with this brother, man, very solid brother, very knowledgeable brother, very spiritually based brother, man. We got New Islam on the platform. And for those who want to get the AKA, can you let them know what else you go by, my brother?
Sure, absolutely. I'm also referred to as Rakar Ah-Kel Pasha. That is my Muslim attribute. I am a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the auspices of the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. I also serve as a student in the ministry of Muhammad Mosque No. 1 here in Detroit, Michigan. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this wonderful platform. I am grateful beyond words. I am thankful for the opportunity to share with your viewing audience the importance of why this platform is necessary and the importance of why music is such a catalyst in the development of us as a people. If we go back in time, in history, we know that music, as taught to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is a part of the essence of God's true religion. He says music, color, and medicine is the essence of God's true religion. Well, if we look at the United States of America and we look at countries all around the world, we see that the most influential and most beneficial to any society is the music that is orchestrated or performed by those who are excelling in that talent. So any given day, you see that. We see that our people are maneuvered. They're patterning themselves, fashioning and being molded by the artists of today. They're able to give them intellect, insight, give them news that they can use, as our older folks used to say. But it's paramount nonetheless. And again, I'm so grateful.
Yes, sir, man. Well, it's definitely an honor to have you. I felt like it was very important to have you on a platform for exactly the reasons that you just stated. I know you not only to be just an informative brother, but also a lot of people may or may not know that you are a very dope MC as well.
100%, 100%.
And I heard some of your bars, man. The brother gifted with that pen, man, if you don't know.
Yes, sir.
So definitely with you having that gift, I feel like it was important to have you on the platform and get your perspective.
100%.
If we can, I know, like all people that have grown and developed themselves into quality men and women, we all have a background. We all have those humble beginnings that we come from that molds and fashions us to be the people that we stand as today.
Absolutely.
If you can, tell the people where you're from and let the people know what was life like for you coming up in the city of Detroit.
Absolutely. Well, being a Detroit native, of course, I was born in the year of 1985. So, I grew up in the golden era of hip hop. My origins date back far as the legends known as Esham, far as the legends known as Awesome Dre, and also dealing with the artist Boss, well, may Allah be pleased with her, who recently made her transition. But all these artists, especially the one DWI that I remember mostly, from the neighborhood I originally was from, which was Finkel Avenue, they played a heavy influence on the upbringing of myself and my siblings. And coming up in Detroit, I understood early that there was a culture that we had that was different from any other culture around the country. When you go to East New York, you know hip hop was the culture of the day. When you go to LA, you know that gangbanging is the culture of that time. But in Detroit, we had a unique culture that was different than anyone else. And it's unfortunate that it was a bad culture, but it was our culture nonetheless. And everyone knows what that culture is: dope dealing, hustling, manufacturing and distributing a controlled substance. That's the culture of Detroit. So 9 times out of 10, there were 3 things you were doing. You were either working at a factory, selling drugs, or using drugs. So, you know, being a part of that culture, it cultivated my mindset. So at an early age, you know, I was influenced by that environment, and I was also influenced by hip hop. And being a native of Detroit, I always saw the uniqueness in our talent. Knowing that we were the originators of Black household music, being that Motown is the home of some of the most celebrated artists in Black history. And being a part of that city, I always felt like we had something to bring to the table. So when I tried my hand at certain talents, I didn't excel as well as others did. When it comes to singing, I didn't have that talent necessarily. When it came to being able to orchestrate or act and conduct ourselves in the theaters of acting, I didn't have that. But what I did have was a way or an ability to put words together at a very early age. My father would have me write certain dissertations towards certain Black patriarchs in our society, like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. And I had to study thoroughly these individuals' history. And from doing that, I was able to put words together that were captivating and motivating and inspiring. And from doing that, I gathered a knack for hip hop because it was an avenue that I can actually channel, that I can actually cultivate and, you know, be able to excel in without having to worry about being outshined by my peers.
Yeah.
So at the age of 12, I remember my brothers, we used to, back in the day, you know, we didn't have studio equipment available. We weren't privy to that. So we would take 2 radios, right? And we would have a cassette tape playing on one side with the instrumental going, and then we'll have another radio recording our voice. And we would go over, you know, certain instrumentals that were influential at that time. And I remember like yesterday, the song Smile by Scarface and Tupac Shakur, may Allah be pleased with him. They were playing, and it was such a cinematic music, man, and it caught and it touched you, you know. And this is around the time Pac had just died, so you know the avenue or channel that we were all trying to get in that pocket because it felt like something was missing. So inspiration became at an all-time high at that moment because Pac and Biggie were no longer amongst us. So you had a huge insurge of musicians coming in trying to fill that void.
Wow.
And at that moment, that's when I was inspired. I wrote my first rap. At the age of 12, I believe I was, or 13, and I rapped over, you know, Scarface Smile record, and that was my first rap. And I just carried it on from then. And as I developed, of course, being influenced, as I've stated, being a native of Detroit, you are a victim of your environment or you are a victim of circumstance. And being that I was a native in Detroit and the culture being drug dealing, of course, eventually I would lead myself down to that path. So in the year of 2006 or 7, I don't recall, but I was charged with possession with intent to deliver, felony firearm, operating a drug house, manufacturing and distributing a controlled substance. And when I was in that, of course, I excelled like most of us as urban youth. We're influenced by certain patterns and certain musics, and I was influenced by my environment. So I took notes from those who were in that environment, and I excelled pretty well. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end.
Man, and if I may, man, that's amazing because a person would look at you right now.
Yes, sir.
And they might think, brother, you just fell from heaven, man. Your spirit is so
Yes,
A1,
sir.
man. Like you know, like I said, solid brother. So to hear you know what I mean, those charges and what you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
sir.
I think that's inspirational for people to see that you can change and that you
Absolutely.
can
Absolutely.
rise from the mud and be greater than your circumstances.
Absolutely.
You know, you talked about Detroit culture and it being drug culture.
Yes.
Has Detroit always been a get money city full of hustlers and people? You know, a lot of different cities have different identities and what
Very much
they're known for. You going back into that time, would you say that Detroit has always been that? If so or not, what's your thoughts of Detroit culture?
Detroit has always been the culture of drug trafficking since the late 70s, early 80s. You have the prominent figures known as the Butch Jones, YBI, Best Friends Incorporated, Chamberlain Brothers, which the movie New Jack City was patterned after. All these different people were moguls and, you know, champions of our community. And even to this day, the most monumental and pivotal movement originated here in the city of Detroit on the southwest side, known as BMF, that was led by Demetrius Flannery and Terrence Flannery, or Southwest T. So at the end of the day, we know that we were leading that field because the most predominant and dominant ones to do it, which was referred to as the greatest show on earth, started right here in the city of Detroit. Yeah. So that shows the magnetizing culture that we had, and that's the mindset of being a go-getter, you know, being a natural born leader. That's what we excel at. And no matter where we go, what community we thrive in, if you put us there, we'll eventually run it. Why? Because we come from nothing. Yeah. Being a part of a society where you have to learn how to climb from the bottom to the top, it's a necessity to thrive and strive and be the best you can be in whatever endeavor you decide to go into. And unfortunately, our endeavor was drug dealing.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, we were most powerful and most potent. And the history shows.
And so with that, what was the next steps in you actually going through the transition, you know, moving out of that lifestyle and to kind of, you know, understanding life from a different perspective? Because in me kind of doing my homework and research, 5 percenters.
Yes.
Right? The 5 percenters, who is also known as the Nation of Gods and Earths, played a very heavy role in hip hop.
Very much so.
It was all through the music, something that they call the lessons, or they'll say 120.
120.
Was also incorporated in the music. How did that play a role in you, you know, developing yourself and, you know, gaining what they call the knowledge of self and etc.?
Well, absolutely. Well, you know, Wu-Tang Clan in particular played a very pivotal role in that. You know, we used to hear phrases like the black man is God. I remember AZ and Nas, even on his album, he made references toward the first one known as Illmatic, which is a cult classic. He had references of the black man being the original man in that. And then you had other groups like De La Soul, other groups like, I forget the one, Lord Jamar's, Grand Nubian. Groups like Grand Nubian that were always pushing the envelope to let us know who we were in society. Well, that origin dates back again, because Detroit being the #1 in almost all categories, even to the fact of religion. Well, black religion in particular. And you know, I'm referencing none other than the Nation of Islam. It started here in the city of Detroit on the east side, Black Bottom, the most, you know, considered poverty-stricken, downtrodden, but at the same time where black excellence is thriving at, all in one category. So that was at the time prior to 1930, and we saw the development of the Nation of Islam. And that being in a city where it was considered, you know, a wasteland to a degree. And for us to come from out of that with a shining new human being, that had an impact on people all around the world. Malcolm X, who was a native of Lansing and ventured here in Detroit, went over the crisscrossed the country. So much so that when he went to New York, before he became a member of the nation, he was known as Detroit Red because he was so impactful. And being from Michigan gave him a certain edge that other blacks didn't have at that time. So he was able to go to other countries and be, other cities, and being so influential with the nature that was given to him for being in Michigan, they had to name him Detroit Red because it was a signal of who he was and what he represented.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful and potent he was. And when he got into the endeavor of the Nation of Islam, he excelled that much more and even further advanced, so much so that he influenced many of the hip hop patriarchs, from Rakim Allah to KRS-One to Big Daddy Kane. These are all different MCs that were influenced by the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir. If you was to go into hip hop and what the art form from your perspective is originally supposed to be utilized for,
Yes, sir.
what would you say that would be?
Well, hip hop in its origin was a two compound word, hip and hop. Hip is a terminology that we use in Detroit today when we say, you know, you hip to something or you hip to that, meaning that are you in the know? And hop meant movement. So hip hop together was basically the in the know movement. That was the origin of it. So it was to give those who were in the know a platform to create a movement, to create an environment where we could excel in our department, because we knew how the community was going. We knew the information that the local news and the national news wouldn't give the community. So we found a way to voice our opinions in a way that was fashionable, that was captivating and able to, you know, allure you and bring you into what we had going on, that you may be able to identify and eventually sympathize with our struggle.
And that's powerful, man, because when you go back into slavery times, you know, our people used to send messages through music, through hymns and,
Yes.
you know, those old church songs, you know what I
Yes.
mean? And so as time, went forth and hip hop came into the scene, that was the prime way to be able to put a message all around the world for our people to understand, even when it came to, like you say, Grand Nubian, Public Enemy, even Tupac Shakur for that matter, you know. At some point, rap shifted.
Yes.
And it began to be a lot more darker, you know, a lot more criminal than it was. For me personally, and I could be wrong, because this is also a part of me educating myself.
Indeed.
But I believe that hip hop shifted when NWA came out.
Yes, sir.
From your perspective, someone who lived in those times and in this time and, you know, has been able to see the full spectrum of it.
Yes.
When do you believe the shift took place? And I guess I want to ask, how detrimental do you believe that shift was?
Indeed.
From your vantage point.
Well, as I've stated, I was born in '85. So I wasn't fully privy to the impact that NWA had in the community, but I was more so privy to the effect of NWA, meaning the remnants thereafter.
Right.
So, during the time of their Immaculate Conception, they were progressing and going well from my understanding. And Ice-T also was a patriarch. He's actually considered the originator of gangster rap. So, Ice-T had a platform and he shared it. He was the first one to talk about police raids, the record called 6 a.m. in the morning. That dealt with being raided by the police. He was the first one to say that on record. No one talked about that. And the NWA came shortly thereafter. But their initial aspect was to be radical. They were revolutionizing the game. They wanted to exercise the Second Amendment, which I believe is the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. And they wanted to be able to exercise that freedom of speech, to be able to get across their point of view uninhibited. And so with them being able to do that, it was very captivating. It inspired the people, and it was a lot of controversy that was taking place at that time. So when the enemy, he sees the effect that we have on our own people that he has no influence over at that moment, then he finds a way to be divisive. And he finds a way to put his claws into it, that he may be able to maneuver. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad coined the phrase that the The diameter of your thinking determines the circumference of your activity. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan furthered that and said, he who gives you the diameter of your thinking determines the circumference of your actions. So the enemy understood that science, and he went to work to poison our people. So he would present our brother Eric Easy E. Wright, may Allah be pleased with him, with certain deals that initially was meant to inspire, motivate, and help him in his development. But then there was, of course, another plan in disguise.
Wow, 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 man. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You saying that was actually, that's when the reward for speaking or talking about certain, you know what I mean, pushing the envelope to talk about certain things, that's when it began to be rewarded. Because we was having a conversation and we was talking about more artists not necessarily rapping so much gangster stuff, but kind of being a little bit more conscious to talk about, you know, real subject matters and real things that's going on in the community that can advance the community for better, instead of you know, worse. And then I think I responded in a way of basically talking about the system, how they reward you for talking bad. Like, they not giving record deals to people, you know, to a lot of people that's talking like Kendrick Lamar or like J. Cole, or, you know, you don't see a whole lot of people making it on that level. What do you say for people that want to strive to keep that quality in their music? You know what I mean? And then on the flip side, what do you say to the people that's, you know, talking about, you know, I guess things that may not be, you know, quote unquote, you know, beneficial to the community?
I get it. Well, the best way to go is the way that we see our local artists here in the city going, and that's the independent route. You get more exposure now than you did back then. In those times, in the 90s, you had to get a record deal in order to get certain exposure. You would have to either travel to New York or LA. But now you can do it from the comfort of your very own home. You can actually put up a camcorder, record yourself, make live instruments, bands, so on and so forth, and you can broadcast yourself around the world free of charge. And if you're dope enough, then someone will pick you up and they'll be willing to work with you and do music with you. It's really that simple. We see one of the leading fields of music today in the genre of rap is the battle rap culture. And we see them excelling, you know, with the Smack. And I was around for the DVD era of Smack. So I used to idolize those guys, man. You know, all the battle rappers from then and the battle rappers of today, they're showing us the way, because now they're making records with, you know, executives and artists. Puff Daddy's going to their shows. You know, Method Man is doing records with battle rappers. Snoop Dogg is doing records with battle rappers. So that shows us that if we have a platform to actually excel in, we don't need the enemy to do it. We can put ourselves out there. So my advice to the youth is to overall, look, don't worry about trying to, you know, catch the attention of our open enemy, because they have no good for you. Worry about catching the attention of the people that you're trying to serve. And from that vantage point, you'll be able to move forward and project yourself at a much larger level.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, just to pivot a little bit and kind of, for those who may not know, you've mentioned some particular names throughout the interview thus far, and one of them being the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Indeed.
Who is the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Oh, brother. To be honest, that's a whole nother session. But in layman's terms, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he's what the Black community needs in a being shell. He's a warner, he's a guide, and he's our strength. He represents Black excellence in totality. When you look at the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he's the most responsible for all the patriarchs that we revere and that we look to for guidance today. When you look at Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Wharf-Dean Muhammad, Huey P. Newton, Stokely Carmichael, all of these different patriarchs, had it not been for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you wouldn't have heard of none of them. So it's interesting that he's not mentioned in our history books. When we were coming up in the United Snakes of America. During grammar school, we had to write reports on certain, historical figures in Black history.
Yes, sir.
So you did Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Garrett A. Morgan, who's the inventor of the stoplight and the gas mask, so on and so forth. But they skipped past the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's responsible for most of the people that you admire today. Why is that? You have to ask yourself that. So what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad represents to us is hope that we can be a free Black man in a society that is diametrically opposed to us as a people. You can be a leader and stand your ground and believe what you believe in and be a benefactor to your people all at the same time. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is one of the beautifulest human beings you'll ever encounter. And I encourage all viewing audiences, whether Black, white, Malaysian, whatever your religious persuasion or connotation may be, purchase the book, Message to the Black Man in America, by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I guarantee you, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir. And like you said, that was actually that movement called the Nation of Islam was actually founded in Detroit.
Yes.
In 1930.
1930.
If you can you briefly talk about how that was established and what the Nation of Islam as a religion or movement is? Because I just kind of want to inform people for those who may not know. I feel like the Black movement or the movements that was empowering Black people, I don't feel like it's publicized like it was in the 90s, in the 80s. And so with this platform, I definitely want to give that opportunity for it to be out here for the young brothers that's coming up, that's 17, 18, 19, in their 20s.
Absolutely.
And, talk a little bit about what the Nation of Islam is and, why does it exist?
Absolutely. Well, the Nation of Islam started here in Detroit in the year of 1930. July 4th, our founder, Master W. Fard Muhammad, who came from the East, and it was written of him to do so. What the Nation of Islam represents is far beyond what one may be able to conceive from these few words I'm getting ready to express. However, it's paramount that I do so. The Nation of Islam is what we read about in Scripture, because a nation is just a society. And Islam is an Arabic word which means peace or submission to do the will of God. So when you read about the times of those who came before us, whether it be Moses, whether it be Abraham, Jesus, Lot, before God destroys a nation, he always raises up a messenger from that nation to warn them before their untimely demise. The Nation of Islam falls in that same line of divine. In the book of Malachi 3 and 6, God says that, "For I am the Lord, I change not," indicating to you and me that God doesn't change his mode or method of operation. He's consistent, he's subsequential, and he always does things in a sequence. So every time a man appeared that came with God, he came bringing a book. So it was with the Nation of Islam. And we have many books. And these books are for the re-education, the re-engineering, and the reprogramming of the so-called American Negro. We're here to lay the foundation of a new world that's coming in. You read about it in the Quran. It's referred to as the hereafter. The same book you read from the Bible of the same name, because there's a world that's coming in that this world doesn't necessarily want to come in, because they are the benefactors of it. So if you notice, in the book of John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world," not this world, but the world that was coming in, "that he gave his only begotten Son, and whomsoever believe in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life." Well, that world that's coming in, the Nation of Islam is solely responsible for that. You take it or let it alone. The reality of it is, we started something here in the city of Detroit, like most things, and it expanded far and wide. Mm. So now you have a pivotal movement that is expanding far beyond reach of the enemy's control. Mm. It's sporadic, it's spontaneous, it's convulsions, it's beautiful, it's erupting, so much so that it's leaking into the ears of the community via music, via television. So because of that, they wanted to take us off of the television. Mm. But they will not be successful because we are with the people and the people are with us. So what we represent in totality, brother, is the beginning of a new world. I hope I answered your question.
No, you definitely answered it. And I see the influence of Islam. In 2024, you have Lil Durk.
Yes.
You have Kevin Gates. Mm. You have so many artists that's adopting the principles of Islam.
Yes.
But one in particular in Detroit that stands out to me, man, and he's doing a phenomenal job, you know, yes, as an artist, man, is Icewear Vezo.
Yes.
We actually just posted Vezo, somebody caught him making salat.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I was like, man, that's dope, man.
Very
you know,
much
just
so.
To see him. When you think about Vezo, you know, in Detroit and being Muslim and just how he conduct himself and doing movies and just his thought process, like what
Absolutely.
You think about the brother and the influence of Islam in 2024?
Brother, Islam, according to the enemy's reports, is the #1 religion in the world. And it's the fastest growing religion in America. I remember when I first got word about Icewear Vezo making his transition from whatever it was he was believing into Islam. And I remember the word had got back and they said the brother they said a local rapper had took his shahada at, it's called Iona. No, not Iona, but it's a masjid on the east side. I forget the name of it at the moment, but there was like a local rapper took his shahada. And when I did my further investigation, I found out it was him, and I was so thoroughly, excited for the brother. And I couldn't wait to give the brother the greetings of Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
Because it's always a joyous moment when you're able to fellowship with one another in truth. So the Quran says it in Surah 3, Ayat 103, I believe. It says that you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and I binded to you together by my rope and made you brethren. So the rope of Islam is the common denominator that connects all of humanity. Because no matter where you go, no matter where you're at, regardless of class, color, or creed, if I say Assalamu alaikum to you, your natural response is Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir.
It's a universal greeting. And it's the same greeting that Jesus gave to the disciples in the book of John chapter 10. Go read it for yourself. When he entered the vicinity, he said, peace be upon you. Now, you and I both know that Jesus didn't speak English. He spoke ancient Aramaic, which is a combination of Arabic and Hebrew. So he either said Shalom Alaikum or Assalamu Alaikum. It's one of the two.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. And then, even to see, the moves that the brother is making, and I see a lot of the young brothers that's around him.
Yes.
Adopting it. I don't know if she is, but Vezo's manager, I remember during the month of Ramadan, I was talking to, Chanel, and she was like, yeah, I'm fasting too. You know what I mean? And I was oh man, that's what's up.
That's powerful.
Just to see that influence that's taking place. What words would you give of encouragement to the artist that's maybe wanting to, go through a transition? And we know that space is difficult to just drop everything that the streets and, rapping about what you rapping about and making, to provide for your family and stuff like that, but still wanting to strive to, be Muslim or to even be a better Christian for that matter. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say what my teacher, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, would say. One time he was at a convention, I believe it was a Christian one, and he was expressing our vantage point. And he said, there's really no reason for us to argue amongst one another. He said, because there's only really one God, and he said, there's only one religion. And he said, you know what that religion is? And the crowd said, what? And he said, obey God. So when you look at it from that diaspora, we're all on the same playing field. If we are in obedience to God, then we are a part of the same religion. There's no deviation in that. And the Quran says it best. It says that we make no distinction between our messengers. Why? Because they all came bearing the same message.
Yeah.
So the advice I would give, again, is from my teacher, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. He said that there's nothing more powerful in the universe than a made-up mind. When you make your mind to do something, the universe gets out of your way. And you can ask yourself, if you had personal goals, certain things that you desired to do, when you made your mind up to do it, the world got out of your way. And then before you knew it, around helping you to develop what it is you had in your mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Also, I seen, we posted it a few times, with you out with the newspaper.
Yes,
if you can, what is that newspaper so that people can know? What?
The newspaper is the Final Call newspaper. It's the #1 program and the #1 minister of the Nation of Islam. So wherever you go in the United States of America, if you see a young man or an older man on the corner with that paper in his hand, you get it in yours. It's informative. It tells us what goes on locally as well as internationally. And it deals with Black excellence. It deals with the nature of things. It tells us what we are to have in store and how to prepare. And it gives us the strength to carry on in the dark hour. Final Call.
Yes, sir.
The Final Call newspaper.
And with that newspaper, man, I've seen Dame,
yes.
Team Eastside, but
yes,
also
sir.
doing his own thing. Major artists in Detroit.
Yeah. I love all those brothers. Yeah.
From Doughboys Cash Out.
All them brothers.
And they all know you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Peasy, Dame, like Peasy put me on his gram before. Dame put me on there. You know, I love that, bro. And I love Dame. Like Dame, me and him have a personal rapport. And Keith, another one, personal rapport. And they all recognize me and I recognize them because I see what they represent for our city. It's not a coincidence that Detroit is the starter of everything. And it's not a coincidence that Detroit is the driving force behind the music industry today. If you listen to those who are making music now, it has a very similar Detroit tone. There's a reason for that, because we always been known to do our own thing. And we always been known to be gun-ho, strong-headed. And when we maintain that, no matter what we're doing, we're always leading the field. Always have been, always will be, because the most potent and prominent Black figures come from Detroit, Michigan. So I identify because the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan said that one rap song is worth 1,000 or 1,000,000 sermons. So our rap artists are very pivotal, and we have to identify with them because they're the ministers today. They're the ones who are giving light to the people and encouraging them and inspiring them and motivating and educating them. So it's our job as members of a civilized society to give them a word of inspiration, to tell them to keep going, to let them know that we see them, we admire them, we encourage them, we love them, and we offer our support. And in turn, they offer theirs. And it's just one big family.
Yes,
I love all of them.
Yes, sir, man. I see with the Detroit rap scene rising at the rate that it's rising, one of my thoughts is that the industry will be making its way into Detroit very soon.
100%.
And one of the things that I'm concerned about is the business being taken care of, so that when these people come, we'll already have systems and already be organized so that they won't be able to monopolize and take control over what we built from scratch, from the ground, and didn't get any help on building. We kind of just forced our way into
100%.
the scene.
Absolutely.
What would you say to you know, the community, even with the Tubi movies and
All
just
of that.
everything. Like we
All of
winning right now
Winning.
with all of these industries. What words would you say to them in terms of the business side and how important that is to get that in line before other people start coming in and trying to take over?
Well, first and foremost, you go to those who are wise in that field and you get their advice. You take everything that they have to offer and you apply it. Secondly, I'm not necessarily too concerned with us being infiltrated or being manipulated, because as long as we have Uncle Trick, Royce the 5'9", as long as we have, you know, Hussein, I forget his name, pardon me, who was leading the field, Trick's brother.
Yeah, Street Lord Juan.
Street Lord Juan.
Yeah.
Come on. I met him a couple of times too. But Street Lord Juan, big shot. As long as we have these people in our community, the industry won't be able to do that. As long as we have our brother Tate, you know, King Tate, man, that's my brother too. East Side General, man, him and Street Lord Juan, you know, they run the East Side to a degree. As long as we have Bodie James, you know, the reality, as long as we have artists like this, the industry won't be able to penetrate because we have our foothold on it. And we're not allowing any outsiders to come in and dictate how we maneuver, they come to us. They got to come at the table and negotiate. So I'm not really concerned about that, because as long as we have these people at the forefront, we ain't got to worry about none of that. As long as we have Street Lord Juan, Trick, Royce the 5'9", Tate, and others like them, we don't have to worry about things like that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Because that's something that's on my mind. I'm glad you said that, because that do kind of put things into perspective for me. Because I'm like, I know they coming.
Yeah,
and when they
it.
come, they coming. But as you just said, we definitely got some real solid individuals that's intelligent and know the business.
100%.
You know, fortunately, even for Royce, who's been able to cross over and actually get the knowledge from the industry and know everything of how that whole thing is ran, like, we protected as long as we got those
100%.
people. So that's a fact, 100%. Right. Anything that you would like to convey to the people, get across? Because to be honest with you, man, this definitely is not going to be our last one.
Oh,
I would love to have you on as you know, a reoccurring guest.
Inshallah.
You know, in general, with different conversations, different topics. I just like, you know, your thoughts on different topics, and it's so many things to talk about. Even with, honestly, the Diddy situation, and kind of wanting to get your take on that.
I would love to.
It's a lot of things that I definitely want to build with you on. But just for in this time, in concluding, any words that you would like the listening audience to know, any warnings or any advice that you would want to give, now's the time to tell them.
I would say to the viewing audience that the time and what must be done by the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, you should go to any service in your city, any Muhammad mosque that is offering these DVDs, or you could possibly see it on YouTube if the enemy hasn't taken them down. But I would encourage you to watch that lecture series, a 58-part series. I would also encourage you to watch the Savior's Day lecture that was given here in the city of Detroit, entitled, "What Does Allah, the Mahdi, and the Messiah have to say about the war in the Middle East?" The year prior, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan told us that the war of Armageddon has begun. And on the latest issue of the Final Call, it says that the war of Armageddon ensues. So we know that we're getting ready to be heading toward, with Israel being attacked from different countries now, with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, saying that all occupants that are from Russia need to evacuate Israel immediately because he has something planned. We have to prepare for the worst. And we have to be mindful of the time. And we have to prepare ourselves for what's coming. And what's coming is what the scripture refers to as the shock of the hour, which is a grievous thing. So get prepared. learn the law of the land, learn how to survive with little means, and learn how to ration out portions of food and how to not spend so much. Be frugal. And learn how to identify with the times from both Bible and the Quran so that you may be able to maneuver in this dark hour.
Definitely was an honor, brother. Definitely was a privilege. Again,
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor was mine, brother.
would love to have you on for more upcoming episodes.
Yes, sir.
I feel like this was a great interview for people to gain from, especially with the hip hop community of Detroit. Having that with you being a familiar face,
yes, sir,
and being on the platform, I know that it's gonna resonate with you having a hip hop background.
Yes, sir.
I know it's gonna resonate. So until next time, man. New Islam, the Foreign Magazine, Pulse of the Culture.
All praises.
Let's get it.